Hello everyone and welcome to the Basics of Color Grading series. If you don't know me, my name is Blake Bodeblock. I'm a student filmmaker and an amateur colorist. I've been doing this for about 4 years now, and I just thought it would be fun to make a small series of videos sharing some of the things I've learned over the past couple years. I'm going to be color grading in Davinci Resolve. If you've never used Davinci Resolve before, that's sort of where this video is going to start from. You don't need to know anything about it. I'm going to go into it from the very beginning as if it's the first time you've opened the software. And this is mainly going to be focused on color grading. So let's just get into it. If you don't have Davinci Resolve, one of the really cool things about it is that it is free to download. There is a studio version, which is a $300 one-time purchase. It comes with a couple extra features, but the free version will do most of the things that you will need it to do. There's no strings attached. You can go ahead and download it, and it'll do everything you need. To download it, literally just Google Davinci Resolve, click on the first thing that comes up, and you can see free download now, and that will get you the software. I think for this series, I would recommend following along. If you have your own footage, if you want to do some color grading, I feel like with any film thing, you learn a lot more from doing that just from listening. So when you open it for the first time, I'm guessing what's going to happen when you open it for the first time is that you're going to either be on this, which is the cut page, or the edit page. To navigate between pages, it's just this little bar down here. You can see one of the cool things about the software is that it's an entire post-production workflow all in one software. In Davinci Resolve, they've put it all into one, and you just need to jump between these pages to get into another part of your post-production workflow. And it sort of moves from left to right. So that's, I think, the most helpful way to think about it. You, generally speaking, will do these in the order that they're laid out down here. We're gonna go over to the far left down here into the media pool. Once you're in the media pool, you should be able to see anything that you would have downloaded on your computer or any external drives up here in the top left. If you can't see that, just try clicking this media storage on and off. Any window that you want to open, you'll be able to see it up here, but if it's clicked off, you won't be able to see it. So if I click on the inspector right here, then we can see it. Click it off, it's gone. Media storage should automatically be open, but just in case you don't see it, just click on it and make sure that it is up. So I've already pulled a couple of clips into the media pool down here. Basically, to take a clip in, just find your clip within your folders and then just drag it in. So that's what I've already done with these couple clips that we're going to be looking at for color grading. So then once your clips are in the media pool, I would head over to the edit page. Now the edit page is a whole other thing to learn. It is really similar to Premiere or most other editors. So if you've used Premiere or a different editor, it'll probably be pretty intuitive. For this, I'm not going to really dive into that. I'm mainly talking about color grading. But to do color grading, you need to have clips in your timeline. So I would just pull your clips down into the timeline, just like this. And now we're going to jump into the color page. The color page is right down here. And click on that. And here we go. We're in the color page. Woo! So when you first open the color page, some parts of your color page might look slightly different than mine. And if that's the case, you might just need to, you can always click on things or not click on things. Honestly, some of the stuff you don't need to have up right away. The things I would recommend having up though, for sure, are your clips right here. If you can't see them, again, just click on clips so you can see which clips you're affecting. Once we actually get into color grading, we'll probably just turn this off. You'll want to have your nodes open right here. If you don't know what nodes are, that's okay. We'll get into that in a second. And the one other thing that I would recommend having on, which is another thing we're not going to get into for a little bit, is your scopes down here. So to turn those on, just click on this button right here. Automatically, it might be set for keyframes, but just go ahead and turn on your scopes because your scopes are going to be really, really useful for you while you're color grading. So once your view looks like this, you're chilling and you're ready to start color grading. So the main purpose of this first part video, besides just giving an overall sort of view of the interface of Davinci Resolve, is to talk about converting your footage from your log or raw color space into a workable color space. So basically what that means is we're going to take the footage from looking all like low contrast and kind of gross to looking normalized. When I first started out color grading and I was just sort of messing with everything, one of the things that I would often make the mistake of doing is just kind of looking at this, looking at your log footage, and trying to manually make it look normal just by bringing in contrast, bringing up saturation, maybe messing with the wheels a little bit. Just trying to manually get it to a spot where it would look like how I felt like it looked when we shot it. I would really strongly recommend not using that method. The purpose of log is to conserve as much dynamic range as possible and to give you as many options as possible when you're color grading. Log is not meant to be the baseline from which you start doing your creative color grading. There is math that is meant to just convert it to a workable Rec. 709 color space, which is what we're aiming for. This won't apply to all of you. It depends on what camera you shoot with, if you're shooting in log or not. You might bring the footage in and it'll look pretty normal right away. And if that's the case for you, then you don't need to do this. But I would still pay attention because you are often going to be shooting on a camera that shoots in log, and this is a really fundamentally important step to understand about color grading. I'm going to show you two and a half methods for converting this shot that we have right now into Rec. 709 so that it's workable and we're ready to actually begin our creative color grading. While I'm doing that, I'm going to go over some of the basics of what you're looking at, of the color page. The first thing I'm going to talk about is nodes. All of your color grading is going to happen within nodes. If you've never worked with nodes before, they're kind of like what you would think of as layers in an editor or in something like After Effects. They work a little bit differently because instead of one on top of the other, it's more of a flowchart thing of here's where you start, here's where you end, and the nodes are everything in between. So this little green dot right here represents the start of our footage, and this little green dot represents what we're outputting. And everything in between is what we're doing to the image. The first thing I would do is add just a couple nodes. This is always what I do at the beginning. You can do that by right-clicking and just hit add node, and I would just add a serial because that's your basic node, or you can hit Option S on your keyboard, and that will add a couple nodes. So I'm just going to add a couple, just for us to have a baseline. We'll dive more into nodes as we continue the series. For the beginning steps, I would just recommend having a bunch of nodes, and every adjustment that you do, have it be in a separate node. Again, we'll dive into that more later, but for now, just have a couple nodes to start working with. Let's get into the first method for converting your footage. The first method is to use a conversion LUT. If you don't know what a LUT is, basically a LUT is a bunch of complicated color science that happens with the image that gives it some kind of look. There's two main kinds of LUTs. The first, which is what we're going to be using, is a conversion LUT, and its only purpose is to take your footage from log to Rec. 709 to make it look normal, to make it look like how it looked in real life, to give you a baseline to work off of. And the other kind of LUT is a creative LUT. Will give your footage some kind of creative look, but it won't necessarily transform your footage straight from log to a normal looking image. You can download LUTs off of the internet. You can buy LUTs. You can download a lot for free. Luckily, Davinci Resolve comes pre-built in with a lot of LUTs. If we click on LUTs right up here, we're going to be able to see all of these different ones that Davinci Resolve just comes pre-built with. You'll see here that there's all these different types of footage and camera companies. Each camera company and sometimes each camera you shoot with is going to shoot in a different color space. And in order for conversion LUT to work properly, it needs to know what color space you shot in. If you shot your own footage, you'll probably know what camera that you shot with, at least the brand of camera, and that's going to get you most of the way. So for example, the footage that I'm looking at right now, this was shot on a Panasonic GH5, and if we go over here, we can see that Panasonic is right here. Luckily, there's only one V-Log to V709. With any LUT, if you just hover over it, it'll give you a little preview of what that's going to look like. And we can see how this one, that's not doing a ton. Let's see, that's probably not going to look right. It's really important that you use the LUT that is for the color space that you shot in. Otherwise, the conversion just isn't really going to work properly. Now, I know since I shot on a Panasonic camera that I shot in Vlog, because that is the Panasonic version of Vlog. Every camera company is going to have their own version of Log. Here's the Arri Alexa Log C. There's Red Log. Sony has S Log. So every camera company has its own version of Log. Panasonic uses Vlog. So Vlog to V709 is going to convert my footage to a normal looking image for me to start color grading. It's important to keep in mind this is just the start. You're going to do a lot more to this image. This is just making it look normal. So I can just, if I want to apply a LUT, make sure you're clicked on whichever node you want to apply it to. And if you're applying a LUT for conversion, I recommend doing it as your last node in your node tree that you have here. So click on your last node and then right click on this, hit apply LUT to current node, and there you go. And it's on, and then you can start color grading here. We won't do that in this part, but we'll do that in the next part. So that is the first method for converting your footage. Not a bad method. It will work. Most of the time though, it's not the method that I use. The only reason I would use that method over what I'm going to show you now is if I was using a LUT that was both a conversion LUT and was giving me some sort of like creative look. So one example of that, I have this footage was shot on a Sony a7S III, and I have these LUTs. I bought these LUTs that are both conversion LUTs and creative LUTs. They are meant to convert your footage into Rec. 709, but they also are meant to emulate the color science of an ARRI Alexa camera. So if I put this on, you can sort of see that it's doing more than what the average conversion LUT would do. And that will give me a really good baseline for starting my grade. That's an example of when I would use a LUT like this over the next method, but most of the time I'm going to use the method which is color management. Color management is a whole topic that is very worth getting into, which I'll probably dive into a little bit more throughout this series. But very basically, color management is a very mathematically precise way of converting your footage that is repeatable. And you can really control what color space you're working, which again is a bit complicated, and it's okay to not dive into that right away. There's two methods for doing color management, which is why I said 2.5 methods I'm going to show you. The first method is in your settings down here. So if you open up your project settings, probably you're going to be on master settings, I would think. Then we can go into color management, which is its own setting. There's a couple different ways to do color management. The way that I've learned how to do it is in color science, switch this to Davinci YRGB color managed, and then you're going to on-click automatic color management, and then in your color processing mode, you can change this to Davinci wide gamut intermediate. So once your settings look like this, go ahead and hit save. Now nothing will change, nothing will happen yet, and that's okay. Open up your clips again. Now when you're on a clip right now, right click on it, hit input color space. So now you're telling Davinci what color space your footage is, what it needs to look at in order to convert this properly. So as we talked about earlier, we shot this on Panasonic GH5, so that will be Panasonic Vlog. So I'm going to click on that right here, and once I do that, now the footage is converted. Again, it still doesn't look great because we still have all of our actual color grading to do. All this is going to do is convert the footage to Rec. 709. Now we have a good starting spot. And the thing about this, this color management will also make it so that if you shot on different cameras, it'll kind of bring everything to a nice sort of baseline. So now this will be a little bit different because this is a Sony camera, but I can go in here, input color space, and I will just find S-Log right here, and there it's converted to how it should look like. This is what it looked like when I shot it. And one interesting exception to this is this footage right here was shot in Blackmagic RAW on a Ursa 12K. And since Blackmagic makes both Davinci and they make that camera, they've already told Davinci what Blackmagic RAW looks like. So once you change the color management settings, your Blackmagic footage will automatically be converted and look normal, and then you can start color grading from there. But I didn't have to put in a color space for this. It just automatically was set. For the rest of the clips, you will put in a color space. You can put in a color space for multiple clips at a time. So I know these are both Vlog, so I'm just going to shift click on both, input color space, Panasonic Vlog, and now they are both converted. So now all of my footage here is converted to Rec 709, and I can actually begin the creative process of color grading. The other method for color management that you will see that I'm going to show you real quick, I'm going to go ahead and turn these settings off. Once I save this, all that will go away. The other method is to open up your effects if they're not open. Your effects are in the top right. And there's a whole bunch of effects, a lot of which we'll dive into in a separate part, because effects are a whole thing to get into on their own. But you just want to go down to this one, which is Color Space Transform. So go ahead and click on that, click and drag it onto a node. Now you're going to see a lot of settings here, a lot of which are really confusing. Honestly, I don't understand all these settings either. This is for advanced color science and all that stuff. But what we really want to just look at is right up here in the color space transform, your input color space, input gamma, output color space, output gamma. So this is basically the same as what we were doing before. We're going to input color space as Panasonic V gamut. And then we are going to input color space as Vlog, and there automatically it will convert it just like how we want it to. So we go from your log to your Rec 709, and that is exactly what you want. Sometimes if your color space is different, your output or output gamma, since it's using the timeline, it'll just automatically send it to what the timeline color space is set to. If it's different, you might have to change those settings, but usually you won't. And that's just another method of doing that. Why I would do that instead of the one in the settings is something we'll get into later. Just know that they pretty much work the same. They both do the same thing, and either one will work. So that's going to end the first part of this color grading series. I'm going to continue and actually get into more creative color grading in the next parts. Here we just have a good baseline for our image and we are ready to go. So yeah, thank you guys for watching. If you have any questions, please let me know. I'd love to answer any. And yeah, thank you so much.